Hey, we are the Lab Doctors. I'm Amanda.
I'm Dorothy.
And I'm Zhao Yong.
We are biomedical researchers who realized we still have a lot to learn about science.
So why not join us on this quest?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lab Doctors podcast. So this week we're going to be talking about being hangry.
Like angry and hungry.
Yes.
Hungry, angry.
First question, are you hungry right now?
Of course. What?
Yeah. Dude, it's like 8:20. We started at 7:30.
Do you feel hungry a lot?
Yes.
More recently less, but I do still get hangry, I guess.
Oh yeah, so that's the
I
next
don't
question.
think I get hangry.
Do you ever get hangry?
Oh no, I'm
No.
like constantly. Like if I'm hungry, I feel like my threshold for BS is so much lower. I get irritated so much easier, and then I'm like, am I just hungry or am I really angry?
Same.
Yeah.
Huh? Really? I don't think I get angry, or at least maybe I don't feel it. But I don't know if people think I'm angry when I'm hungry.
My emotional regulation is decreased when I'm hungry as well.
Same.
Okay, so before we even get to hanger, I don't like saying hanger because it's spelled hanger.
Yeah.
It's very hard to Google. You have to Google hangry. It's much easier. So what is hunger?
What
Yeah,
is-
before we talk about that, what is hunger? So I'll just give you a brief background. So scientifically, hunger is an identifiable conscious sensation. It is, in its purest sense, a biologically triggered drive for food that is essential for life. However, in our modern day environment, hunger may or may not be linked to food. And this distinction is described as homeostatic or hedonic hunger.
Oh
So
my-
basically eating for sustenance versus eating for pleasure. Okay, so my next question, and I'm asking it in the context of homeostatic or biological hunger, is why do we get hungry?
Something about hormones, but I don't know what triggers the hormones.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But so do you remember what hormones?
Insulin?
That also, okay, but we always talk about it.
Leptin and ghrelin.
Yes.
Oh.
So the best known ones regulating hunger is leptin and ghrelin. Do you remember which one is the hunger hormone?
I
should
think
be leptin.
yeah, I feel like the satiation one is ghrelin. But then because I always make this assumption, then like I find out it's the opposite.
What's your final answer?
The opposite.
The opposite is right. Okay, so leptin is produced by fat cells and act as a signal to the brain to regulate energy balance and suppress appetite. Ghrelin, on the other hand, is produced in the stomach and acts as a signal to the brain to stimulate appetite and increase food intake. So when ghrelin levels are high, the brain receives a signal that the body needs more food and hunger is increased.
I guess we can remember ghrelin as
Growl.
growling.
Yes, if that helps you remember, that's fine also. Like Dorothy said, insulin could regulate hunger as well because blood glucose levels have also been implicated. So when blood sugar levels drop, the body produces hormones like glucagon and cortisol, which can trigger hunger signals.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Because cortisol is the stress hormone. When you're stressed, some people stress eat.
Yeah. So another thing is your gastrointestinal system and your nervous system interacting. So when your stomach is full, the stomach is distended or stretched. So if you imagine like a sack and it's full of food, then it will stretch. And this is detected by stretch receptors. And these stretch receptors send a message along the vagus nerve to tell the hypothalamus in your brain that your stomach is full. Okay, so those are like a brief background on like biological things that can affect hunger. So what else can affect hunger?
Starvation.
That's kind of biological, right?
Stress.
Yes, so environmental factors may also play a role. Things like stress, sleep, and physical activity can affect hunger. So hunger is also influenced by neural circuits in the brain that respond to sensory cues such as sight, smell, and taste of food. So even thinking about food can actually stimulate a response.
When you smell like something good, like the neighbor cooks so nice smell, then I want to eat the neighbor's food.
Yeah, but like if you think of like even thinking about food can stimulate hunger.
But I'm thinking of Garrett's popcorn and how I don't want to eat it. Oh my gosh. Don't cancel me, Garrett. It's too sweet lah.
Yeah.
For our age.
Agree.
I guess that can go the other way as well. When you think of food and you don't want to eat it.
Yeah. So it's not purely just homeostatic
Yes.
is the point. Okay, so with our basics out of the way, today I want to tell you about 2 studies which investigated the link between hunger and mood. So the first study is an animal study published in Psychopharmacology in 2018. So this study was conducted in rats and they specifically examined the impact of a sudden glucose drop, or what's known as hypoglycemia, on emotional behaviour.
Oh, so like a drop in blood sugar caused the rats to be more hangry.
I would imagine that they're like they start to dig for food.
Or like, more agitated.
Yeah.
Okay, so they use a very specific behavioral study here, which is commonly used in neuroscience research. And it's studying negative reinforcing properties of a drug or other aversive stimuli. So I know that doesn't really make sense now,
Yeah.
but so in this case, the rats were placed in a maze that has 2 distinct areas. So different walls and surroundings. And over time, the animals learn to avoid the unpleasant environment and spend more time in the neutral environment. Okay, so we have 2 distinct areas, right? Like with different walls and everything. So for the first experiment, they injected the rats with a glucose anti-metabolite.
What does that mean?
And
It will cause a drop in blood glucose.
Oh.
Yeah. So then they put them in one side.
yes.
So when they are in that side of the
Maze.
maze,
Yeah.
then it's like unpleasant.
Yes.
And then the other one is like they just inject like something neutral
Yeah.
and then like they go to that side. So that's their neutral side.
Yeah.
So then after that, they like put the rats like in the environment again and see where they spend more time.
Yes.
So that's the behavioral study used
Oh
here.
yeah, I don't understand.
So it's like they are training the mouse to learn that this area is where it's
Where they have
associated with
low
unpleasant.
glucose. Yeah. Which in this case is like they inject with the glucose anti-metabolite, which induces hypoglycemia.
Okay.
Okay, so in this first experiment, when given the choice, they actively avoided the hypoglycemia chamber, meaning that to the rats, that hypoglycemic state is unpleasant compared to like normal. So this type of avoidance behavior is indicative of stress and anxiety. So the animals are avoiding the chamber where they were injected with the anti-metabolite
Yes.
because the hypoglycemia was unpleasant.
Yeah.
So these rats showed lower glucose levels, higher corticosterone levels or your stress hormones, and also appeared more sluggish.
Oh.
So one of the questions here is, could the low glucose affect their muscles? Because now it does affect their mood, but like,
Yes.
is it because it's affecting their muscles?
Muscles. Yeah.
So to study this, they conducted the second experiment where they used antidepressants, clonidine and bupropion,
Okay.
and to see whether it could alter the effects of the glucose antimetabolite, which is 2-DG. Okay, so these drugs actually reverse the effects of the glucose antimetabolite. Okay, so saying that like it can rescue
Yes.
that like phenomenon.
Like the aversion.
Yeah, the aversion, just if you regulate
With antidepressants.
with antidepressants.
Like, and that's in the training phase. So I include the antidepressant, induce hypoglycemia, put them in this particular area that's supposed to be
Yeah,
make them feel bad.
yeah,
As in that's supposed to train them to recognize this area as bad.
yeah.
And the antidepressants
Like-
would suppress the bad feel.
So the antidepressants will reverse the effects of
Yes.
that bad feeling.
Yes.
So it's not the training phase, it's already the testing phase.
No, but during the training phase, they included the antidepressants. So these rats, they end up like not preferring the neutral zone or
Yes.
there's no preference
Ah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you kind of treat it to see whether it can reverse the effects.
Yeah.
Okay. So they measured the stress hormone levels after like the antidepressants and the glucose antimetabolite. Okay, so like from this same thing where they found that the antidepressants reverse the effect of the hypoglycemia. So they found that both drugs actually reverse the effect of the antimetabolite on stress hormone levels. So not only like did it reverse the effect of like their aversion to like a certain place, but it also lowered the stress hormone levels.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so what about the drug alone? Because now we are looking at antidepressants, its effect on low blood glucose, not when they're hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that final experiment is a control experiment.
Yes.
So the drugs alone had varying effects on locomotion, but it didn't produce a significant place preference.
Yes.
So it didn't like change their aversion. So maybe they would stay in like a certain chamber more just because of the antidepressants. There was no significant difference.
Yes.
So the effect is only in the hypoglycemic state. So TLDR, from these experiments, the researchers suggest that the rats experienced stress and depressed moods when they were hypoglycemic.
Yeah.
So this also contributes to the literature on the association between depression and metabolic diseases like obesity, diabetes, bulimia, and anorexia.
Right.
Yeah. So between this rat study and the human behavioral study published last year, there's actually quite a lot of literature on this. So studies involving humans link hunger to feelings of restlessness, nervousness, and irritability. And short-term fasting actually had an impact on mood and affect, but the results are not very conclusive. So experimental studies showed that low blood glucose levels increase impulsivity, anger, and aggression. So findings have also shown that hungry people made more errors during tasks and tended to have less self-control. So this is like a really like short review of like most of the studies that are out there. Okay, so the second study that we're going to talk about today was published last year, where the researchers set out to investigate how hunger affects people's emotions on a day-to-day level. So it's not an experimental study, it's a very like in your real life study.
Like observational?
Yes.
Okay.
So the present study used a method called experience sampling method, which is supposedly the ideal research tool to better understand how hunger affects emotional outcomes in individuals' everyday lives. So this method involves self-reporting of levels of hunger and various measures of emotional well-being. So there were 64 adult participants in total, and the study period was 21 days. Okay, so there were 5 things reported, and the participants answered these on a scale of 1 to 100. So first was obviously hunger, so 0 being not hungry at all, and 100 being very hungry.
It's a very wide range though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like this gives you more data points.
Yeah.
But I think the SD will be very high. The standard deviation will be very high.
So besides this scale, for hunger, they also asked the participants how much time had passed since they last ate. So then for the mood, they checked these 4 things: anger, irritability, pleasure, and arousal. Okay, so anger, irritability, and pleasure, I think is pretty straightforward. Arousal basically means how awake you are.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the researchers found that hunger was significantly associated with 3 of the 4 mood factors. So can you guess which 3?
It's just not pleasure lah.
Anger, irritability.
Oh wait, might be arousal too. No.
Do you feel pleasure or displeasure when you're hungry?
Yeah. So it should be...
Not pleasure lah. I wouldn't feel pleasure. What is displeasure on the scale?
I think so. Like it's just a spectrum.
It's just a
is it?
scale.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So
Yeah.
everything except arousal, I think.
Yes. So out of these, arousal was the only one that was not significantly associated with their hunger. But this hunger, remember, is self-reported. So hunger was associated with 37% variance in irritability, 34% variance in anger, and 38% variance in pleasure recorded by the participants. So these findings were significant even after adjusting for confounding factors such as sex, age, body mass index, dietary behaviors, and the trait of anger. The research also found that the negative emotions, irritability, anger, and unpleasantness are caused by both day-to-day fluctuations in hunger as well as residual levels of hunger measured by an average over a 3-week period. Okay, so this study seems quite observational to me, but they also did not comment on whether the participants were blinded in any way. So the perception of hunger and anger being linked may affect responses. So if I know I'm doing this study on being hangry, it may like condition my mind to think like when I'm hungry, I'm angry, kind of thing. Yeah. So besides this, the authors also confessed that a limitation is that their results do not present ways to help with this emotion. That said, they did cite that existing research suggests that being able to identify an emotion can help individuals regulate that emotion. So that's like where they're saying their benefit comes in. Okay, so before I let you guys like comment on anything, I have this beef with this paper. You can cut this out. But like in the paper, they keep calling anger and etc. negative emotion, which triggers me. So just like a PSA, the emotions just signify something. It doesn't necessarily need to be assigned a moral value like good or bad.
Yeah.
So, yes.
No, I mean it's negative maybe because if you're irritable and you shout at someone or you...
Yeah, but that's how you deal with it. How you, like what manifests. I can be angry, but it doesn't manifest that way.
Yeah. So as in, if it goes that way, then it's not good lah.
Oh, yeah lah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the emotion itself is not necessarily good or bad.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't manifest it.
So like, do you think being hangry is legit, or do you think it's something that people make up?
I think it's real. I feel like I'm definitely at a lower threshold when I'm hungry to reach annoyance or irritation. Not only that, but like, can you think about like people who are queuing up for food and how unreasonable they can get? I feel like
True.
But I don't know if that's because they're hungry or is it because they're just terrible
Impatient.
people. Yeah.
yeah. But I'm thinking like maybe hunger plays a role.
Maybe.
So my one like comment about like the research that is available is like there's not a lot of biological evidence, or like they never look at it mechanistically. And I think like one of the limitations is like, so for example, this study, right, this 21-day study, they have to ask people like 5 times a day. So I can't imagine it being very feasible to like take people's blood 5 times a day to check like what's their blood glucose level, leptin and ghrelin, and like how distended their stomach is and all that. So I'm like gauging people's like self-reported feelings are good enough, but maybe I should.
I would let them take my blood 5 times a day if they pay me well.
Yeah, so I guess that's where the feasibility comes in. Like, can they like
they need to get the money?
Yeah.
It also sounds like you probably need to live in a very controlled environment. So like even the food needs to be controlled.
Yeah. So you'd have to house the person at like a certain place.
So we have to be in a maze.
Yes.
Yes, pretty much. And then you have to like take note of when you eat. You only can eat at these specific times, so that like when we sample you, it's really like 1 hour post meal, 2 hours post meal kind of thing. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, fine, I'll give it a pass.
Maybe they should do it for one workplace. Then it's like everyone is kind of exposed to sort of the same environment.
Right.
And then they can just bring down a nurse who will just take your blood as and when after you eat.
I don't know how much blood you need to measure like hormone levels, or like
provided
cortisol.
I don't faint from 5 times a day.
They always take so much blood from me like, whenever I go for blood tests. Like,
I think it's fine.
Can you imagine doing that 5 times a day?
But to poke my arm at the same
5
place.
times. Oh no, like they can leave the needle.
The catheter inside. That works too for 21 days. I guess I have to work at the hospital.
Anyway, yes. At least there is some evidence that hunger has an impact on mood.
And as usual, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Spotify. A like and a comment would really help us out.
You can also follow us on our social media, Instagram, Twitter or Facebook, and feel free to DM us any questions.
Alternatively, you can email us at thelabdoctors@gmail.com. We'll post the links in the episode description, so you can check that out if you're interested. Bye. We're going to have breakfast.
Hungry.
Oh my god,
Very.
What?
Hungry, very. Very hungry.
Yeah. This is proof of hunger for me, because whenever you go for camps and they make you cheer before you eat your food, I'm like, I just want to eat my food, and this stupid ass ritual is preventing me from eating my food. I always hated that cheer. Whenever I hear it nowadays, I still get a very visceral response.
Are you hangry?
I'm making y'all not be able to go for breakfast. Very hungry. Hungry, very.
Bye!